wasn't listening. And like the business, something that I've learned is like your business will squawk at you until you listen, and it'll
Right.
get worse and worse until you like actually listen to what it needs. And look at old videos of me, and I'm like, oh, I just like wasn't like, I was trying. I was like, that was the phase of like me trying to be confident in what I had to say. But now it's like, throw me in front of a camera and I'll say something. Um,
Hello, world. On this episode of Kicking the Junk, I have an amazing discussion with Megan Shallow. Megan Shallow is the creator of BNL Social Media Marketing. She has created a team that is doing some fantastic, wonderful things, and she did all this by staying at a place of being centered, aligned, and sticking to what she knew was true. Her story is so amazing and wonderful, and it's amazing to see how she went from a conversation with a stranger and saying yes to now having a company with 7 employees and doing so well that now she's speaking at masterminds and other companies are learning from her. I'm so excited to share this one, and I hope you enjoy this one because I know I learned a lot and really enjoyed it. And it actually changed my perspective a little bit on social media. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you at the end. All right, Megan, well, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here. I've actually known you for quite a few years, and it's really fascinating to see how your business has just blown up through the past few years. I think last time we spoke, you just started doing social media freelancing, which was really cool. And we were inquiring about that with the company I was with. And now you're in masterminds and you are helping other companies run their social media, and things have kind of just started to go, really just blossom, which is so amazing to see. So I got so many questions. I'm really excited because this is like, you're on, I'm doing a business segment and you're kind of in the real growth stage. So I guess, let's start with just why did you want to start the company, and, talk about that process a little
oh
bit.
gosh, I'm like having a moment because I'm like, oh man, we knew each other when I was like 21. Like
Yeah.
I'm 32 now. So
Right.
it's been a while.
Yeah.
So much. Or 23. I'm like trying to think when I joined our gym facility that was
Hmm.
at the time. Yeah, what was the question again?
Oh, so no, that's all good. So last we chatted again, you were just starting this company.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
yeah,
was
so I'm curious on what got it all started and what was the motivation there.
yeah, well, it was interesting. I got like kind of like strongly suggested to dive into digital marketing. I
Oh,
went on a trip to Thailand. I don't know if you remember that. And I did like a yoga retreat and all of this stuff, and like shared a lot on my social media about it back when Instagram was just a photo sharing app. So there wasn't really much else that you could share. Um, and I came home, and one of the gym members, funnily enough,
mm-hmm.
uh, was following me because I noticed that happened as I worked at the gym. And we went out for tea after because he wanted to ask about my trip. And he was like one of these guys that was very, I would call him very intuitive individual. But he asked if I had ever considered getting into digital marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, what is that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that you can make a lot of money on Facebook. I didn't understand that like social media was like this new revenue driving opportunity for people, and people were making lots of money on it. I worked with kids and worked in the gym, and like that was in swimming and all of that stuff. So that wasn't really my world, other than I loved Instagram and I loved sharing my story and using it as like a scrapbook for my life.
Right.
Um, yeah, so he was like, you should get into digital marketing. I'm like, okay, what does that entail? What do I need to do? And he was like, well, he's like, I think you'd be really good at writing a blog, so you should probably do that first. And I was like, okay. And he's like, figure out a name for the blog. I called it breathenourishLove.com, which is what BNL stands for.
Oh, I was actually going to ask you that.
Yeah, it was like those 3 words. I was like, I'm a huge fan of Eat, Pray, Love. It's my favorite movie. And I was like, well, like I
Okay.
could choose 3 words that like really landed for me for like Thailand. And so those were the 3 words that I chose. And then I like wrote on the blog, and was he also bought me a book, like Social Media for Dummies, basically.
It
Instagram
turns out it
wasn't
works.
even, yeah, Instagram wasn't even in that book at the time, which I find so fascinating.
Mhm.
It hadn't been considered like a business driving platform yet, so
No.
it wasn't on the list with everything else.
Mhm.
And And then he also bought me like The Magic. I don't know if you've ever read that. It's also
No.
it's written by the same woman who wrote The Secret.
Okay.
And so yeah, after this tea, he literally took me over to Chapters over at Orchard Park in Kelowna and bought me those 2 books. And I'm like,
Wow.
what is happening? Like I
Yeah.
just like
Just got thrown into it.
I just got back from Thailand. I was like super open for whatever because I knew that I wasn't going back to school. I thought I was going to go back and get my master's degree and PhD in psychology.
Right. Yeah.
But then I just realized that was not what I wanted to do. And yeah, so I did that for a little bit, got a job in marketing, ironically, from a member of the gym as well. Actually, no, a staff member at the gym. I posted on Facebook, was like, hey, I need a job in marketing. Who knows someone who's hiring? Because I wanted to learn more.
Yeah.
And that gentleman introduced me to the agency that he was working with. And that was when I got the job. It was like super simple. They just hired me. They're like, you can be a market researcher and business analyst. I'm like, what is that? Like, these are all like, I was following the lessons and the things. I was like, clearly I'm meant to be in marketing, even though I swore after I graduated in psychology, I refused that I was going to go in marketing. I was like, never, because it's like the stereotype. If you don't go get your master's, you're going to marketing.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, so it's like what people don't like doing after their psych degree. And yeah, I got a job, worked with them for 8 months. They were like the fastest growing Facebook ads agency in Canada at the time. I just liked their logo. It was a wolf. Thought it was pretty cool. They had no website. They were like super mysterious, but I walked into their office and everyone was in sweatpants and tights. And I was like, yeah, or the women were in tights, the men were in just sweatpants and just chill vibes, playing video games. And I was like, okay, like I know how to work in an environment like this. And I Googled what business analysts do and market researchers. And then I just built myself a position within this company. And I worked alongside the CEOs. There were 2 of them, and I worked really closely with them and supported them in like building the company culture and doing market research on like the different clients that were coming in and like looking at the competitors and all their social media and like all their ads that they were running and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I would say that was my marketing school. And
Wow.
and my hairdresser asked, she's like, you're in marketing, like, can you run my Instagram? I don't have time. She's like, I'll do your hair for free. And I have blonde hair, so that's expensive.
Yeah.
And so I just traded that and got free hair, did some Instagram posts, and was able to turn her Instagram into a very profitable space.
Wow.
And made her like, she wasn't known in Kelowna at the time. And after a year of working together, she was like winning the like Kelowna Now Awards and stuff. And it was just she was doing amazing work. It's just it wasn't on social because she couldn't advertise herself. And I was like, we need to do all of this.
Totally.
And it was all through organic Instagram.
That's wild. Yeah. And you know what I love about your story there is that, you know, a lot of the times people aren't in a right headspace to even see these things. A really good example is if you're in a headspace of, you know, let's say men are bad, whoever you're meeting with, or if you're like, you're just super angry at the world for whatever, would you be open to meeting with this guy and sitting down to tea with him? Probably not. Right. And so that opened a weird door that opened up another one. So you were in a good headspace and you were allowing these things to happen.
Yeah.
Which is so fascinating. And I find, you know, too many times, you know, people get opportunities, but they quickly shut it down because of whatever emotional state they're in. So it's really interesting that you just, you know, you were in that headspace of like, no, you know, I'm just going to follow this and keep kind of just letting it, you know, keep going and to diving into it with this, like, no, this is okay.
Yeah, like this is just where I meant to go. I mean, even like the gym, like I was actually looking for a job for my boyfriend at the time. That's how I got the job at the gym. Like that's how I got, like I was working at the daycare first, and then like I got moved up to like front desk, which is where I started connecting with the community and stuff. But like I didn't plan on working at the gym. Like I, again, was a swim coach and all of that, but I was like meant to be there for so many reasons. And it was like, and it's just so interesting how like 2 people from that location completely shifted like where I was going and like my entire career, and obviously to get here.
Absolutely.
So fascinating.
Absolutely. And I, you know, I got a few questions.
Bring
I
him
don't want to
on.
dive. I don't want to dive into the business side yet because this is the Kick in the Junk podcast, and so many times I find you get a couple things. Like I said, people are in the right headspace, so don't take that shot, and you did, which is so amazing, and it's just wild that these just kept unraveling and going. But again, a lot of times too is we have those low moments that kind of set us up for this. We have that moment when it feels like the universe just hits us, boom, we get hit so hard and we're like, what the hell happened? So I guess my question then for you is, have you had any of these moments in your business, and how did you manage them?
In my business?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So funny. Like I think all those hard moments of like getting hit in the junk are what like transformed into
Yeah.
even just me getting here. The I think like the ones where I've like had the most pain in
Mm,
business has been with staff because
right.
I like love them so much. Like it's just such a really important relationship for me, like building company culture. It's always been something that I've loved doing, and I have a gift in just like building communities
Yeah,
uh,
that's cool.
and I've had a few times where like people came into the space, learned what they needed to learn, and then went out and built their own social media company.
Mm,
Um, and that was those moments of like, okay, short-lived relationship, it's fine.
mm,
But it was definitely there were some pieces that just was like, oh, like trusting blindly
yeah.
was something that I've like, it was a pattern that I'd run in a lot of my life.
Mm,
Um, and I find my business parallels personal almost all the time. So if
well,
like I
yeah.
have patterns that are running in my personal life, they're going to run in the business and vice versa. If I can see them in my business, usually they're running in my personal, but ironically, like my dating journey and relationship journey on that side of things has paralleled with my relationship building within my company. And
Wow.
like as I got better in my company and like finding my power and finding my boundaries, that relationship side started to actually get better. And I started
Wow.
to attract more aligned people into my life that side.
Right.
So it was really interesting to watch that in hindsight. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I learned that lesson faster, but it took like 7 years. Took this entire journey of getting BNL to this point. But those moments, there was that. And then one of my biggest patterns was overgiving. And
Right.
in my business, it's always like the money just would never stick. It would always come in. I could build like the company has generated over $1 million to date.
Wow.
And but it's just like I couldn't get it to stick. I always
Right.
over hired to get rid of it or like bought different things, and then I would get to this point of like extreme panic inside. So it
Okay.
would be so that was like, and we just had a moment like that in January where I just
Right.
like didn't know if we'd keep going.
Wow.
But we did, and like the ship is no longer sinking, but it was sinking to the bottom. And I've had many business owners tell me who've been in business longer than I have. They're like, "Oh, that's normal." I'm like,
Yeah.
"How the hell did you navigate that? And how are you happy right now?" Like, because
Yeah.
when I was in it, I was not. And
Yeah.
from the outside looking in, everyone keeps saying, "Oh my gosh, like you have such a successful business." Da, da, da. But inside, I'm like, felt like a huge failure. So,
Yeah. That's the tough part is because now you're getting hit with this. You still have these things you got to maintain, right?
totally.
And so I guess my question is, what were some techniques and strategies did you do to mitigate that and to keep yourself in a good headspace to not let the ship sink? And then
Yeah.
I guess maybe maybe it's actually the prequels. What kind of emotions were you feeling during that time? And then what did you do? Because that's the thing I find we like to sweep under the rug is pretend, oh, it's been happy, happy the whole time. And it's like, no,
No.
man. Like sometimes you feel like you want to die.
I'm a crier.
Yeah, yeah.
So, tears almost every day was
Oh,
definitely an experience that I had. Um, I am blessed with, I'm a part of a mentorship space called Living in Balance. And it's
cool.
like women who've come along before and have navigated similar waters. They've all like built their wealth and steward their wealth, but in balance and built their
Mm,
business in balance. And they come alongside and help women. So when women are in those places, it's like, they come alongside and continue to push you forward when you feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. They know that the light's
wow.
there and they help you. Um, Like these women are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. Like they've literally been there.
Yeah.
And they're building their own businesses at the same time and still building their lives and families and all of that. And they came into the program when they were 30. And so it's
Right.
just so interesting to have that and to not, I didn't have to do it alone. And that was something that I learned pretty quickly. And I even was super transparent with my team. At first, I hid it from them.
Right.
And then I realized that just wasn't going to work. Especially once I had to start letting people go, like people needed to know what was happening.
Right.
And the ones that were safe needed to know that they were safe so that they could keep their nervous system
Yeah.
fine. And so that was super hard for me because I had to actually like let them know, like I've not that I failed, but we've just there were some mistakes and like
Yeah.
because I loved having employees, but also
Hmm.
everyone told me employees were expensive and I like didn't
Hmm.
really believe them.
Hmm.
And then I started believing them pretty quickly once I started just putting everyone on full-time salary right away rather than like slowly building people up to full-time. And that was a lesson that I will never do again. But
Right.
that was 2022 for me, for sure.
Right. And
Yeah.
looking back at that moment, again, because I couldn't imagine. I mean, again, I find one of my things is I always just care for people. I'm always like, oh my God, the little guy or the guy. And it's hard to not take that personally.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so how did you not, take that personally? And how were you able to, still be a human, still come across as who you are, but, try to have a little bit of separation there and realize like this wasn't you saying you don't like them. It was just,
No.
hey, this is just a scenario in right now.
This is what has to happen. Yeah, the first time I had to let someone go and like fire them and follow all HR protocol and all of that stuff, which HR protocol is so fascinating. It's like take the emotion out of it and don't say anything, which I'm like a
Yeah.
bundle of words and a bundle
Yeah.
of emotions.
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
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 So like the first one was the hardest and I was so resistant. I knew I had to do it, but it took me like 2 weeks to get the courage to actually make the call.
Oh,
And then it did ironically get easier over time. And I think that was it was a growing point for me to really work on separating that because BNL, she is her own entity and like she like thinks just that energy is hers and like mine is separate now. I'm not her. And so it was I wasn't listening and like the business is something that I've learned is like your business will squawk at you until you listen and it'll
right.
get worse and worse until you like actually listen to what it needs. And that was a pretty big eye-opening moment for me, but there were a lot of tears and I did have someone on the call with me who she was very strong. So I pulled from that support and I didn't do it alone either. So I wasn't on the call alone. I didn't have to navigate my words by myself.
Right.
Um, and I had someone there that I had talked to prior being like, this is what I'm going to say. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say it. So there was this accountability there.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to stay in my power, even though I just wanted to crumble and like tell them I'm so sorry and all of this stuff where it's just, that's not the place. And they're
Yeah.
all thriving. Like it's just so fascinating because they were such a close collective, the whole group of them that I had to release. They're all in the right avenues that they were meant to be in, and it wasn't BNL forever. So it's, my staff that still stay connected with them, they give me updates and it brings me so much joy. Like one of them, he went to Thailand and I was so proud of him for going because like he had just got out of university and like he just needed a minute to like go do like MMA out in Thailand and like
Yeah.
and because he had watched me go to Thailand. I just went last year and like two
Yeah.
months later he went and I was just so proud of him for doing that. And like others have like great marketing jobs that just really align with their passion. Social media wasn't it. And so yeah, it's been really cool. And then now I know it's a blessing for everyone. And it's just like time, it's like when a relationship ends, it's just time for it to end so that
Yeah.
like everyone can go along their path to the next place.
No, I love how you
Yeah.
put that. And I was just going to add to that is that, yeah, sometimes it's, we look at, I did a podcast earlier about on change and how we kind of get stuck in that, like, this is just it. And it's because when it's familiar, it's easy, right? We know it. I know I go to work at this time. I know I do this. I know I do this, but our nervous systems are designed to be afraid of new things because, thousands of years ago it helped protect us. Well, now it's, we have to recognize that our bodies are a little bit different, our world's a little bit different now, and these change can have some amazing things. So you exactly said it there, which is so cool, that you could have been the spark. You were the, unfortunately, but a good thing was the kick in the junk moment for them, but that sparked the next thing. Right.
Totally.
And now they're doing their own thing. Like, oh my God, I'm glad that happened because I would have been there. And now I'm doing this amazing thing. So, it's kind of cool because it takes I guess maybe for you or even just myself, is it takes some of that pressure off of when you have those moments, right? Totally. You're like, hey, this is actually, I'm just setting, I could be potentially setting up for something great.
Yeah. And every time I made like that call, BNL started to grow again. And I thought it was just so fascinating. Like we'd release someone from the space and we'd get a new client. And it's like there's this energy that was blocking allowing the client to come in, because like they were great at what they did, but like it wasn't what BNL needed. Like we didn't need more of that type of staff. And so it was really cool to watch that. So the reward was there as well. It's like, okay, that decision was hard, but look, now like you've opened up the vortex for this to come through. And so the ship just slowly started to rise as I was making these releases of staff.
Totally.
But
and like
hardest thing ever.
Totally. And like you said, it wasn't just a business for yourself or the building of your own business, but then it was for them and now they're thriving. So, it's almost a good lesson for everybody, is realize that these breakups, right? Business, relationships, whatever, can just be, if we look at them with love and patience and realize like, this is just what's happening, and right. And allow for these changes, right? It can be such a easier thing, and it's better for everybody.
Totally.
Right. Yeah. So no, that's super cool. So I got a question, because this is, it's so funny because everybody, especially social media, you see it lots. And then, and especially the younger crowd in their 20s, and they just want to be the social media people. But a lot of people that take that hard, they're scared to take that step. So how difficult was it to put yourself out there and be vulnerable, right? Because it takes vulnerability to just say, hey, I can help you. Right. Because like you said before, and you had, the fact you've already correlated the two, is your business and your personal, they kind of ride side by side. So yeah, how was it feel to be vulnerable like that? And then what were some things you did to continue to, stay out there and be open?
Yeah, I stayed in my gifts when I first started. And my gift is writing. Like communicating verbally was harder for me, and like being vulnerable verbally, like the emotions would just come up so fast sometimes that like I couldn't actually get the words out that I wanted to. And we also weren't living in like a video forward time the way that we are now. So that's taken a lot. Now it's easy. But I used like my gift, which is copywriting, and that was what like was the magnet for people. Like they'd be like, I just love what you had to say, like this really landed for me. And it was like mostly the people that followed me were my personal network or my locals in Kelowna. It was all about the people that I had met in real life that were then like seeing a deeper side of me through social media, and then they're like, oh, like I want that. Or like if she can do that for her, and like she can do that for a few other people, like can she do that for ours? And Kelowna was such an amazing location to build a business because it's like big city vibes, small town like numbers. So there's money in Kelowna, but everyone knows everyone. And so it's like you're 3 steps away from a strong referral. And if that Instagram follower is your referral, like I would get referrals from my Instagram followers. I wouldn't actually get leads. Like the leads weren't my Instagram followers, because everyone who needs social media and doesn't have time to run it is too busy to be on social media. So they usually have referrals, whether it was their wife that was on social media or their like partner of some kind, like their husband even, and like their wife was an entrepreneur, or like their best friend was an entrepreneur. They just liked following us. One of my staff members who I couldn't imagine living without, her aunt was following us for years. And then she graduated and her aunt was like, you should go see if BNL is hiring. And like, how like Danica is like, she's a mini version of me. Way more organized. And everyone loves her. Like people don't ask for me anymore. Like they ask for Danica and Sandra and Talissa and Angie. So
that's got to be a cool feeling, because you've paved the way for those for them to grow.
Yeah. And that's like always that's like always my intention with everyone that comes through. It's like, how can I help you grow? While being
Hmm.
on grows too. And yeah, so that was like I did that, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to get photos done. So like I stepped out and did that, and like worked with a local photographer, and like started figuring out what made me feel confident that way. But I really had to work on my confidence as I was stepping into
Hmm.
social.
Yep.
But social media is the most amazing tool to work on your confidence, because
Okay.
you can tell pretty quickly if someone's confident or not internally when they're showing up on social. Um, and like you can just see it in their face and in their mannerisms and stuff like that. I even look at old videos of me and I'm like, oh, I just like wasn't like I was trying. I was like, that was the phase of like me trying to be confident in what I had to say. But now it's like throw me in front of a camera and I'll say something. Um, and the next step was for me, which has just been something I've navigated in the last year, is taking that confidence that I now have on social media and
Hmm.
transferring that into real life.
Yes.
Uh, because I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I've met people who are so chatty on social media and talk all the time, and like they have all the confidence in the world, and you meet them in person, they're super shy,
Yep.
and you're just like, hold on, it's like,
Yep.
what is happening? It's like when you meet an influencer in real life, and you're like, this isn't what I was expecting.
Yep.
So I just did a bunch of like in real life speaking events, and that
Yeah, I
was
saw that. That was
for me.
amazing.
Yeah, I was terrified, had all the
Okay.
breakdowns in the world. It's funny
Yeah.
because after everyone was like, wow, you're so good. And I'm like, my sister's like, you have no idea what we had to go through. Because my sister's the one I call when I'm freaking out.
Right.
Um, and so that's always something that's like the next thing. It's like, and vice versa. Like if I've met people that are so confident in real life and then they go
Hmm.
on social media and they're not. And I'm like, okay,
Right. Yep.
so that's always like our approach with everything, is like empowering people to feel confident, but keeping them in their gifts first and making them feel confident where they're most like safe, and then
Yep.
slowly building up from there. So if they love design, then we'll keep them in charge of the design and we'll do the copywriting and like try to, create videos and stuff like that. But we always get them on video. There's never a time where we haven't had a client that we finally can get on video these days. So that's
Right.
really cool
So
because
you've
then they
meant,
become confident.
yeah, no, and that's it's interesting because I've had experience both, right? Where somebody's
Mhm.
confident on social media and you see it, and then in real life you're like, oh, you're not nearly as confident as I thought, or vice versa. And you're like, wow, in person, but then on social media you're scared to talk to a phone. So
Totally.
it's very interesting, and it's cool that you guys recognize that and that realize that people you need to work on that because that correlates directly with their business.
And it
So
makes you a better leader. It makes you better at
yes,
sales. It makes you like
yeah,
getting referrals. Like the
mhm,
power of social media just makes you a better entrepreneur and CEO of your company.
mhm,
And if you expect your staff to do it, you better do it. Like that's
yeah,
like I
right,
know
yeah,
my staff go on social media now, but it took about a year for them to start trickling on there. But I had to lead the way, and I had to be
yes.
confident and pretend that it wasn't hard.
But I like that you
And
said pretend I wasn't scared, right? Like,
like
because
when Reels
it
came out, I was
yeah,
like, you got to be kidding me. Like
yeah,
but it works, and it's worked, and we always like it's so fun to watch the team do Reels now,
mhm,
and it makes me so proud because I can see that their confidence is growing too.
yeah,
And it just makes them better strategists and better staff and better team members and better with our clients, because you got to match the power, especially when you're working with entrepreneurs. We have a lot of power.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so, but also a lot going on. So
totally.
yeah, it's really great.
So I want to touch on something quick. Is that you've
Yeah.
mentioned a couple times is finding your gift. You've mentioned that you said that
Mhm.
that was that's your gift is to find other people's gifts. So I'm so fascinated by that because I've heard the term your gift is when it's something that's so easy for you, right? And
Yeah.
it seems like everybody else has to work so hard for it, and you can
Right.
just do it. So how do you find that?
I feel like it's like a feeling.
Okay.
Usually, like again, I just have to reiterate, I'm a crier. Like I'll like there'll be moments like when I used to write, when I used to do my copywriting, sometimes I would make myself cry while I was writing them because it just like brought me so much joy. Um,
Oh.
just writing was always I could never fit the mold of like English. Like I would always get a B in English, and it just made me so mad because I loved it, I loved writing and I loved
Right.
reading, but like I never could get the A. because the rules, like there were just so many rules. And then in university, it was the same thing. Could never get A's on papers because I just couldn't like follow these strict guidelines of like APA and all of this stuff.
Right.
Um, so when all of a sudden I had the freedom to write and to put it out there in the world and people were liking what they were reading, I was like, oh, like, and it would just like, it would fill me up. It
Mm.
wouldn't drain me.
Yeah.
Whereas when I do video, I need a nap after, like a
So you're gonna have a nap
20-second
after this.
reel. Like yeah, like
Yeah,
Zoom.
nap for the rest of the day.
Like Zoom is one thing, which over like the last 3 years has been something I've had to really navigate. But then like being an entertainer on social media and like
Mm.
showing up like that, I'll do like 3 videos in a row and then I can't give something to Sandra for like 2 weeks because it's just not my gift. Whereas if they sent me
Yeah.
something and wanted me to write copy for a photo or anything, I could do that in a minute.
Wow. Okay.
And it fills me up. Like I'm so excited after. So I think that's like where people need to continue to lean towards, rather than being like, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that. Like, because all the things are telling you you have to, it's just like stay in your gift. And then eventually you'll outsource what isn't your gift, or you'll get support to come alongside to help you navigate those pieces. So it's not so heavy. But in
Mhm.
marketing, especially, like I've met people who just do posts and they have great copy, and that just makes them successful. And or they just are really great on video and they're great video editing, but their copy's terrible, but it still makes them successful. So it's just finding those pieces because that's where the magnet will be.
Right. No,
Mhm.
that's really good because I think you said it there. Is like most people feel like, oh, I should do this and I should do this, and they kind of, and then they start throwing a bunch of things at themselves.
Oh yeah.
Starting a business, I need to have this, all these things, and then you realize it's like, you're stepping out of your gift by doing that sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And you're
Mhm.
putting energy into things that you could be putting into that make you unique, right, as an
Exactly.
individual. So no, I find that really fascinating, and definitely we need more of that.
We do. Yeah. And also I hate watching people waste money on marketing when I'm like,
Right.
you can do it yourself first. Everyone can do it themselves first. I had a terrible website when I started, but it worked. It was
Yeah.
all I needed. And then you slowly scale up from there. And
Yeah.
rather than going all in on your marketing first, before you even know like what you really are offering, like
Yeah.
really. And the universe always gives you what you need. So yeah, it's always my first clients. I think back and I'm just like, they just randomly showed up. It was
Wow.
wild. It's like every time I wanted to quit and go back to like coaching swimming and like moving back in that direction, working with kids, it just like I'd get a new client.
Right.
And like I just had a moment the other day where I'm like, can I keep doing this? Like, is this it? And
Mhm.
then I like got a huge client yesterday and I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
guess we're going.
This is, yeah,
This is still moving forward. Um, so it's just listening to those pieces. And
totally.
yeah.
And you know what? I think your overarching theme there, it seems, is that it's very conscious in what you're doing, right? You're not unaware. And
Right.
this is the dangers I find of social media, unfortunately, can be make people very unconscious, right? But you're in that
Yes.
field and you're being conscious with it because you're so aware of these, oh, hey, this came to me. Right. Okay. I need to be doing this because, and you're aware of what's going on. And, like I said, you've had to scale down a little bit, but then your business grew after that and you're aware of that. You're not just looking at these negative things and being afraid of what's, could come, potentially come. You're very conscious of what you're doing, which is so amazing to see. And I think, we need more of that, right? Not just as
Yeah.
individuals, but as, especially in businesses, right? That's so critical.
Yeah, and living in balance. So I'm a business mentor within Living in Balance as well. So this is
Yeah.
something that I've started doing in the last 3 years, because I'm just so passionate about it, like supporting entrepreneurs to build businesses below the neck. So
Yeah.
not getting so stuck up here because like
Yeah.
this brain is only useful for like very little.
Yeah.
And just like really moving forwards, like with your gut and with your heart, even if
Yes.
all the facts out there say that makes no sense and that's not the way to go. And that seems to, it just allows things to be a lot easier. And it also settles the nervous system down,
Yes.
and decreases burnout and all of that stuff. But I think that's why I've always like gravitated towards entrepreneurs that work in that way.
Mhm.
And we do attract entrepreneurs that work in that way too. And when we don't, it never goes well.
Totally.
So, and that's something I've had to like teach. Like I had staff and I'm like, hey, what does your gut say? They're like, I don't know what that means, Megan. And I'm like,
Right.
okay, below the neck. Come on, guys.
Totally.
Intuition. Let's practice
Totally.
that. And so teaching these undergrads or these new grads, like how to use their intuition in marketing versus just like everything that they learned in school. Everything they learned in school is a great foundation, but it's the
Absolutely.
intuition and riding the waves of the entrepreneur that make it successful.
So wonderful that you've recognized that we do need to, sometimes we get too much up in our brain, right? And we get so like kind of caught up on chasing these thoughts. And especially if your brain's not, you haven't trained yourself or trained your brain rather to wire in directions that you want it to go. For example, we all know people that are, they're always looking at the negative thing. The glass is always half empty, right? And so they chase that. So if you don't learn to train your brain to chase, and follow and look for things that you're wanting, and then these positive things that can make a big difference. So when you mention it, there is that, I call it like the mind heart connection. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about that mind heart connection and having them synced up, and
Yeah.
how that helps your nervous system. And you kind of just said it there, but in your way with what you're doing. So I guess my question is, to get that connection, what do you do on a day, and what do you do, how do you get your employees to do the same thing?
Yeah. For me, like it's like where I have to slow down. So like I'm an idea, like I can create ideas all the time. And so for me, like it's especially in the last 6 months. One, I went to Thailand in November, so that really helped me.
Yeah.
Was there a part of me that was running away from my problems? Maybe, but was it necessary? Because I literally, like when I was leaving, like my staff, I couldn't not cry. Like my nervous system was just so overwhelmed that I like that change of scenery. I had booked it 6 months prior, not knowing that I would be in that state. But it was like a blessing in disguise, I guess. Yeah, I went for like 6 weeks and I was like, you know what, we're gonna just test this, see what works and see what doesn't, and I'll come home and fix the leaks. And we found the leaks like when I went away, because we could see what who could hold it, who could hold the ship and keep driving it forward, and who couldn't.
Right.
And then the decisions were a lot easier when I came home. But yeah, I like water, definitely, like being near bodies of water for me.
Right.
Forests are great, but something about a river or an ocean or whatever, like, and I'm so grateful. Like I live in Kitsilano right now, and that was again a random universe, like throwing it in my lap experience. Never thought Kitsilano would be on the list, but I did say that I needed to be walking distance from the ocean. I needed to be near cute coffee shops. That's another thing that keeps my nervous system at bay. I try to drink only decaf or half cap, but I like being at coffee shops. And then, yeah, and just that, like Kids Pool is somewhere that I've been spending a lot of time by myself. And like, I need this solo time. And it's something that I was talking to a friend last year about it. And it's like, it's not like just by yourself, but it's like soul, like SOUL, solo time. And when things were going nuts and just like, it felt like emergency after emergency, like I just couldn't ground myself. So slowness. So yeah, bodies of water and lots of yin yoga, even though I don't like being there. There's this part of me that's like, I just want to go lift weights and like do the things, but my nervous system is like, can't,
we're done.
We're done. Like I'd go to the gym on a Monday and like I'd be wiped for the rest of the week because like I was dealing with low iron and my adrenals are having a time and a half. So like there's just a lot of physical things that I've put my body through during this process that needs to heal. So yeah, the solo time has been real, even though I don't want it. But the more I do it, the more I'm attracting stuff that's showing up to help the boat continue to rise back up.
Right. I love that. No, and that's, again, it goes back to taking care of yourself first, I would say, right? Is when your cup's full, you can pour out into other people's lives. But if your cup's empty, right? And ironically, you're going to water anyway to fill up your cup, right? And on that too, I always try to tell people that, like I said, same thing, is try to, go do things that fill your soul. But,
Mhm.
recognizing that most of the time when you talk to these people or anybody about what fills their soul, it's not sitting in front of a screen. It's not, you know, you know, sitting in front of their phone, whatever. It's out in nature a lot of the times. It's doing some sort of activity, doing something that makes them feel alive.
Yeah.
Right. And even or something as simple as just being in a coffee shop, right? The ambiance there, the
Just
people.
out in the community without actually
Yes.
having to talk to anyone. I think that's my key. It's like you can be out, but like you don't have to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah. You can just be.
Yeah, you can just be and you can enjoy a coffee or a decaf. Highly recommend for anyone that's going through intense times, just don't drink more caffeine.
It
Don't do
doesn't
it.
help. No,
It
I know.
doesn't help.
No, that makes things worse.
Like
Awesome.
my emotional support coffee, I know that things are going wrong if I'm like going to Starbucks and I'm getting my venti half cap soy ice latte. Like if I feel like I need it and I will not, like I will cry if I don't get it, which has happened. uh,
Yeah.
I know that things are not in a good place. So
Right.
yeah, it's
Oh, dude.
interesting.
Well, so to kind of shift gears a little bit
Yeah.
and talk about the business a little bit because you are doing some wonderful things. Like I said, you have
Mhm.
a bunch of employees now, which is so amazing. You got a great team. You were in a mastermind. I saw some videos and pictures, and you were leading it, which is just so cool to see because I just think, I mean, that wasn't that long. It feels like it was not that long ago that you were working at the front desk of that gym.
I know.
So, so now you're like, well, guess I'm doing all this stuff, which is so cool. So, I guess my question for your business is, what sets you guys apart? Because I saw you post, you said you're the unicorn, and I went, oh,
Mhm.
interesting. I want to touch on that. So, what makes your business so different from others?
Yeah, it's the structure and systems that we bring in that allow our clients to feel at ease. What I've learned in this industry is there's a lot of people that will like put the pressure back on the client to be like,
Right,
so what do you want?
right,
What do you want to write? How do you want to write it? What do you want the design to look like? Like asking them more questions
okay,
versus like, we're going to take the lead. We're going to run based on our knowledge. And then you just give us your intuitive feedback of what feels good and what doesn't. And
oh, I
then
love that.
so the key is always the reason why people delegate their social media is because one, they don't know how, or they don't have time. Ideally, it's both.
Mhm,
Or no, ideally it's don't have time. I love when clients do know how.
mhm,
But we have different offerings.
mhm.
Like my whole goal was like, I worked with this big corporation, like big client that, or the agency, the Facebook ads agency that only worked with big corporate because the corporate could afford the money, obviously.
Mhm.
And I was like, if small businesses knew this information, they would get the lift off to then be medium-sized businesses and large businesses and all of that stuff. Like they don't have
Right.
to stay small business, like paycheck by paycheck energy.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was like my passion. So like I built BNL so that there's so many different avenues that you can come into.
Cool.
Uh, and like, of course, when I started, like I could charge low for social media management for so many reasons. One, I didn't have much overhead, but also I didn't have anything to prove, didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
And like didn't know if it was going to really work.
Yep.
And also like they're just like that. Social media was so it wasn't as complex as it
Yeah.
is now. Like reels takes 4 times as long to create than a post.
Yeah.
Carousels take 3 times as long than a post because of the graphic design that's required. Like there's just so many more elements that are needed these days.
Yep.
Um, so that hurt my soul at first when I realized we couldn't help our small baby businesses. So now we
Yep.
offer like consults and coaching, and we're doing
Oh,
webinars and like education forward with everything that we do because we want people to just do it. And my favorite gift that BNL has been able to do is take like I love brick and mortar.
mhm.
But taking the online conversation and turning it into an offline conversation so that people are referring their business, not just through social media, but also they're talking about their business outside of social media and like
Right.
taking it to the real world. Like one of my favorite examples is I got a client and she owned a boutique and I was like, you're going to have to be the face of this company. And she's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to support you in doing it. So we're
Yeah.
going to make it happen, but you don't have to right now. I'll just set the foundation up and then we're getting you on stories.
Yeah.
And eventually, like she was in photos and she started getting more comfortable and finding her footing and finding her confidence
Hmm.
um, with like myself as the first cheerleader. And now she's got the BNL team as her cheerleaders.
Hmm.
And yeah, like she can't go anywhere in Kelowna without someone saying, "Oh my God, like I follow you on Instagram and I just like love you so much."
Wow.
And like it's so like everything you have and your store is so great. And like so she's like an influencer without being one.
Right.
She's just a key community person that people
Mm.
now recognize in real life. And like I was able to do that with BNL where people would come up to me and be like, "Oh, like you're BNL social." And I'm like, "Yeah," like they had no idea what my name was, but like they knew
Yeah,
my Instagram handle.
yeah.
And like that's when I knew that it was working because the
Yeah.
best businesses grow through word of mouth, like
Yes.
in real life.
Yes.
And social media is just this like bridge to that now.
Mm. Yeah.
And so that's where like our gift lies is really like taking that. So that's why I love working with brick and mortar when we can. Kelowna, like we have like we know how to play the Kelowna game so well, and we know how to do that with any Kelowna client that comes our way, which I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for. And now we're in Vancouver, so we're able to start doing the same thing in Vancouver, and that's been my goal as we've come to the city is to really like support the city and like just be known and do what I did in Kelowna, but of course at a larger scale because we're dealing with a bigger city. But I'm taking the same approach because it
Yeah.
works. And
Totally.
yeah, I used to do talks in Kelowna all the time. And then, 2020 and all that good stuff. Um, so once I moved to Vancouver, I was like, okay, I want speaking events. And then all of a sudden I got like
Oh,
two a month
wow.
and I got like 200 new followers on my Instagram and like they all are like love watching what I do. And I didn't know these people before. And I met them for a small second or they saw me speak, but it was enough for the vibe and the energy to be there so that they wanted to follow us on social media and just keep going. So
Totally.
it's just it's bridging the gap between the two rather than solely being online or solely being offline. And
Absolutely.
that's what BNL is really great at. I think that's a great answer. That's what makes
That
us
that is
unicorn.
no, and you know what? I love what you just said because it's at the end of the day, the human connection. Like, we all need connection.
We all need connection.
We need human connection, and I feel like we're in this video and we're getting some connection, but like face to face is obviously always best. So to
Different.
recognize that is huge because I feel like sometimes you get these, I get these ads all the time. Oh, do you want to make all this money on social media? You just got to sit at your home and you can be vacationing and posting. And you're like, not recognizing like this is like where the real work comes in. One
Yeah.
is that you're bridging the gap for real people.
Yeah.
And
Like there's
and
real people behind every username and
yeah,
they're feeling an emotion towards your brand. And
yeah,
you have to create that. Can't be dead in the water.
yeah,
And that's something like we just are doing like a consult for like one of the companies at one of the events that we did. They were a bigger company and I was so excited because I'm like, ooh. And one of my staff were like, but they're already so established. I'm like, oh no, we're gonna find things that they can fix. And the
yeah,
biggest thing that they were missing was the emotion.
yeah.
Everything was like lacking emotion. And you could tell that their
Okay.
ads were probably working and all of that, but like their copywriting was bland. It was super salesy. Like there was no like personality.
Yep.
And we could tell that 3 or 4 people were probably doing the copywriting. So like there's like all these little details that BNL loves. And I'm like love considering details in my regular life. It's very interesting where I care about details and where I don't.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Certain
like with
things get it
social
all.
media, it's like it's where the details matter. It's like, are there location tags? Are you using the right hashtags? Like, I don't care about grammar. That's something that apparently my brain doesn't care about, but my team does. So they watch that part. But it's all in the details that make it successful and can build that connection. Um, and so yeah, it's quite fascinating. But the unicorn was inspired by these tights that I had. They had unicorns and
Oh,
pineapple flamingos on them, and I was like, well, am I use them in my original branding like way back in the day? And I was like,
yeah.
okay, I could play with this. And so flamingos, they've like phased out a little bit. We still use them internally, but we don't really use it in our marketing
Mhm.
too much. But the unicorn stick, and people love it. And I
Yeah.
think it's so fun. And I love pineapples too. So those show up once in a while.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, that's so fascinating because again, it's like you just said, it's the emotion, right?
Hmm.
And it's realizing like we need that.
Me
We are
too.
humans. It's so ingrained. And so you can be able to go to, that is quite cool that you can do that, is go to these big companies that are established and realize like, no, there's a lot of flaws here. So recognizing, the way I come to look at it now, it's like you're recognizing these you're using your gifts and you're recognizing, hey, like my gifts can fit in here. I'm not going to take, and what you did, and it is super smart, is you're just like, well, my gifts is this, this, and this, but I just bring in everybody else who can fill in all the gaps where I lack, and
Oh
not
yeah.
at a place. And it's fascinating you recognize that, because a lot of businesses, if I don't, is they, or the early, they go, oh, well, I'm the guy, I'm the girl, it's all me, it's all me, it's all me. And when, as soon as they recognize, it's like, wait a minute, it's like my employees, they're the ones that are filling in all the extras that I can't do. And
Oh
that's what
yeah.
really makes this thing beautiful. And you guys are doing some amazing things, because, you know, even just earlier when you're talking, I was kind of fired up. I'm like, oh my God, you guys just get to like pump small businesses, which is just
Yeah.
like, how friggin' cool is that? Because, you know, we know they're the backbone of the economy, but these are real people. These are mom and pops. These are people they went to school with, whatever. It doesn't even matter. These are just real people that are like, oh my God, I have an idea, but I'm drowning. I need help. So you get
Yeah,
to come and be their
they're
safe,
real people with real gifts. So they just need help getting
telling the
like
world.
being monetized.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Well, they need,
monetizing your gifts and talents, right?
yeah, they need help telling the world. Right. And
Exactly.
that's what you get to do. You get to be that channel, that in between of like, hey, here's this amazing person. Like you said, with that hairdresser, is, you know, here's this amazing person, but they're just kind of put the shell over themselves. And now
Totally.
you're able to, you're like, hey, let's crack the shell open, and I'm going to shine you in front of all these people. It's going to be a little scary,
Yeah,
but watch what happens. Like, trust me, like, watch what
exactly.
happens. And then also, boom. Right. And then now they can have real conversations with people, because they have some more confidence.
Yeah.
And now people recognize them. So it's not as awkward. It's not this cold, you know, oh, I don't really, maybe I don't know them. Right now they kind of recognize them, and they get to share their gifts with others. So that's really actually, it was funny, because when going into this, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about the follower and this and this and this, but I'm like, no, this is like a totally different world, right? And yeah, I'm excited about it. That's actually really cool.
Yeah. It's the things that we've been able to do are pretty cool. My
Yeah.
there's the event that I just did. I did a talk about how we like took a hotel that was basically like it looked straight out of Schitt's Creek. Like it
Okay.
was like,
Yeah.
and then these like Revelstoke is owned by like three families, give or take.
Okay.
And so
Didn't
like
know it.
this family owned like seven businesses. And one
Mhm.
of them, they had flipped this hotel that was like, it was like a motor inn. Like that's what it
Wow.
felt like. It was like, and they flipped it into something that was extremely Instagrammable, but they didn't know it. And we were able to put it on the map through like connecting community, bringing content creators in and just like doing collaborations and like all of
Wow.
that. And like the client only had to give away rooms that were already sitting empty because no one knew about it. And
Yeah.
we were able to use social media to bridge that gap and get people
Right.
talking about it online, but then sharing their experiences to like their friends and family. And like it just, and now it's full and like they survived the pandemic and it's amazing. But they run it on their own now, but like we built the systems for them that they could just take it and then move it in-house when they needed to, because tourism is so volatile.
Yeah.
And so when we learned that really quickly, as soon as 2020 arrived, and yeah, they still like I look at their feed and like they're still getting content creators coming and like bigger
Mhm.
influencers just show up and they don't have to like it's
Wow.
there's the magnet and
Yeah.
that's like every company can do that in their own way. It's just a matter of like what their goals are and like what they're able to offer. And
Wow.
so yeah, it's pretty cool. I
Hmm.
am so grateful. And like we watch so many of our business owners when they are like when we are working with the CEOs, they become more confident. And even if we're working with marketing teams, like they just become more confident in their ideas and feel more
Yeah.
validated as well. And then we can come in and fill the gaps.
Wow. So again, I want to keep talking about that forever, because
I
I'm
know.
just so like, I'm
Time
inspired by
flies.
it, because I love helping, small businesses, and just hearing them what they're doing. But um, you talked about it before, and I'm just curious on how do you help encourage your team to grow, and not, not allow for their ideas, because I've been in an environment like that where ideas, other than if it was from one person, that was it, and everybody else, it was not a good idea. So
Mm.
how do you allow this, and how do you filter it, and how do you create a environment where you're kind of letting people to express themselves, and underneath what your goal is, or with the intention of what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, I lead the way in vulnerability first. So
I love
I
that.
be transparent, and I think all of them have seen me cry now at least once back. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I really wish I didn't cry right now, but that's all right. We're doing it. Um, or like the tears like come up, but like the vulnerability piece was key, but I've created spaces for them where I'm not there too. And I've like
Okay.
taught like our leaders like Danica and Sandra how to hold space instead. So
Love
it
that.
it's different, like creating spaces within the company where people feel safe. Of course, we're on Slack too, and like that, I've noticed. Like I know they've got like little spaces within Slack where they communicate that I don't see, but I don't need to. Like I really
Mm,
don't. We have like this. My intuition's so strong. Like I just know when there's a fit and when there's something going wrong.
mm,
And when people first come in, like I'm not as uh in charge at the beginning anymore. Like as people get more involved in the company, that's when we connect more.
mm.
Because now Danica and Sandra like are two of my like main gals that I've had for 2 years now. They know the systems better than I do because they've actually created them and made them better than what I had when I started this company. And I've had
Wow.
other people that are like, I'm just not a systems person. Like when I
Right.
first had this company, like no systems. I'm still shocked sometimes of how I got this business to where it is now. But because I got rid of like delegated everything I wasn't able to master. Um,
Yeah.
but
That's
yeah, it's like
that's
it's the
impressive.
creating spaces. Yeah, it's the creating the spaces and but also leading with vulnerability as well. Um,
Yeah.
which is really and asking them what they need for support. I don't push any of like I do personal development stuff and I've had my own journey and I'll share tidbits, but like we've done vision boards once in a while and they love that. And like I'm a huge fan of, manifesting and like dreaming
Hmm.
big
Yes.
and helping them learn how to dream big because if their capacity expands, BNL grows.
Yes.
And the more money and the more profits that come in like allows them to grow their like own salaries and such like that. And yeah, it's just lots of touch points and it's not always me, which I think has really helped open the space even more. And
Wow.
they're committed.
Yeah.
um yeah, it's never had a employee like a disgruntled employee leave. It's more like, I really want to keep you all, but we can't kind of experience most of the time. So
Totally. And I gotta say that's actually really impressive because a lot of business owners don't recognize that early. They kind of come in like I have an idea and I got this started, like I said before, and now they just kind of bowl their way through and they don't realize like people need that space, right?
yeah,
And allowing people to grow. And like you said, and I don't need to talk to them. So, the common thread there is a lot of trust too. You have a huge amount of trust in them, which is so critical and letting that build. Right. And it just allows them to flourish more and go, wow, like I'm in a scenario where like I can do these things and every once in a while I might need help. But like you said, you're not the one that's there every day talking to them. Right. And
no,
it's impressive that you recognize that this early in your career and this early in the business and only, in your early 30s and recognizing that. That's really impressive.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
um I think it might be from all my work with teenage women back in the
Okay.
day.
Right.
But because they were communicating up a storm all the time and I
Yeah.
had to like learn how to navigate their flow. And it's
Yeah.
so funny because now I'm like working with young 20-year-olds, but it's the same age discrepancy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's been really, I mean, we have some men on our team as well.
Mhm.
Not just women, but a lot of women gravitate towards the BNL space. Um and it's yeah, it's a different approach, but I approach it with like we're working with a lot of women because we do need to talk. Like we need to get the words out of our mouths so that we can like keep moving forward and be in our states of creative flow and be able to support and all of that. So yeah,
Totally.
it's
So
something I love.
no, and you know what? That's if it's something you love, it's hard, it's not work, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah. So I guess if you were to look back at yourself, right, is soon, maybe a month after you had that tea with that guy that bought you all those books and kind of got this started, what would you say to yourself? What were some mistakes and things you've learned now that you would say to yourself back then? I mean, things that
Um,
you just could save you time.
yeah. Look at the numbers.
Okay.
Allow the numbers and the data to make decisions. Emotional decision making is something that works for me in many ways,
Okay.
but not
How so? Or
necessarily.
where?
Where does emotional decisions work?
Yeah.
Um, oh gosh, I don't know, like in my personal like day to day of like what I'm gonna do and like
Okay.
what right? I like, if I structure my day too much, it actually drains me more than supports me. So working
Okay.
in a state of flow and just allowing my emotions to navigate where we need to go,
Yep.
is very helpful. But with business, emotional decisions, I think they've like they help me a little bit, but for the most part, like if I had looked at the numbers and made decisions based on the data, and it's like, oh, we have enough in the bank for hiring, like those kinds of things.
Mhm.
um I avoided that for a very long time, which is why, like I said, your business will squawk at you and it'll get louder and louder until you start doing it. That was something that was like the last thing that I just wasn't ready to face, because I just loved everything that I had built. And I knew
Mhm.
that the numbers would tell me an answer that I didn't like.
Right.
And so that has been the biggest hurdle for me, but also it's given me so much more freedom now that I do look at them,
Mm.
and I don't feel so emotionally tied to things, and the decisions are easier, and I'm more transparent. Like we are
Yep.
bringing the numbers to the team so that they see
Oh,
where BNL is at, and like our
I
leadership,
love
like we have
that.
a leadership team and then we have our staff. So like the leadership team is going to see the full picture so that they can learn, because if we're all aware, then we know what we need to bring.
Yes.
Whereas before it was like, I just knew and I knew it didn't look good and that was it. And
Yeah.
so it's just sharing the energy and responsibility that way, because we're
Mm.
all supporting BNL and growing. And yeah, someone told me to read like Traction, which is a book I had never heard of before, but it's like the EOS system. And that's opened up like some of my eyes, because like I need to now build systems in my leadership team, which I
Mhm.
didn't have because I was the only one at first. And now
Right.
we need
Yeah.
systems there. So I love systems more and more, as long as they support me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it keeps me busy, because there was a point where BNL was so self-managing that I felt like I had accidentally worked myself out of a job. And I and that feeling was not, it was weird. It was very strange. So now it's like, now we have structures so that I have like a position still, which has allowed BNL to grow too. But a
Well,
self-managing business is the goal. So it still is self-managing, but I can be a part of it,
yeah,
versus be on the outside.
absolutely. And you can take that time to step away and it's
Exactly.
not going to collapse, right?
No. Go back to Thailand.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess then for anybody that is, let's just say that, you've unloaded a ton of wisdom, which is just like fascinating. I'm actually gonna go back and watch and be like, I need to change some things. Yeah. But for anybody that is starting out, let's just, and they are, they're building their business on social media, what would be a couple, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Because for me, I know, and there's always so much you can do, but like, I'm always
Yeah.
like, hey, what's like the two things I can do that can give me the best results with the least amount of effort?
Focusing small on your local community.
Okay.
So if you're a coach, like let's say you're a business coach or anything, um, like start being made aware in the city that you live in first, and then
Mm.
allow your referrals from that city to get you elsewhere. Don't be like, I'm going to be my demographic is all of US.
Yeah.
Like, no. Especially if you're a service-based business, like local supports local, local trust local. There's this extra trust that occurs without you having to say anything. Like just you having
Wow.
a video
Yeah.
or location tag makes you more trustworthy than someone that has the same business in California. So
Yes.
really, like I always support people if they can, and they're starting with a budget that's like basically zero.
Hmm.
Start with your local community and get out there online and offline and find what works. And
Hmm.
every person you meet, follow them on Instagram and just have that as your connection. LinkedIn is
Yeah.
different. I know a lot of people follow LinkedIn people, but like, so social media marketing and online dating also parallel very well.
Okay.
And if you think about the online dating world, I don't know how long it's been since you've been in it, but I just recently got out of it after
Okay.
a long time. And like there's steps. Like you match with someone online
Yeah. Yeah.
on the app, but then nowadays it's not, you don't go directly and get their phone number. You add each other on Instagram, check each other out, follow each other on Instagram, maybe send
Oh,
DMs.
okay.
And then once you feel like, okay, these people are legit, then you book a call. So
Okay.
there's these steps. And like the exact same thing happened to me after the Internet Masterminds event that I did. I had a bunch of followers. And then, I just kept posting on social media as normal. And then I got a few people send their friends to me like 2 weeks later. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's like it's connecting the two. And that's
Yes.
what I recommend everyone doing, because your local community is the safest as well. And you're not trying
Yeah.
to prove anything. You're just a local building a business, and everyone loves supporting local. So
Totally.
that's,
That's really good. Honestly,
yeah,
I was like, I was starting to write some of those down.
write
I
that
was like,
down.
yeah, absolutely. That's super good. So I guess again, you've been so wonderful. You've had so much wisdom. It's no
Yeah.
surprise your business is just thriving, and really it's not for me, it's not even that. It's just how you're doing it. Absolutely love that. I love that, you're listening to your intuition, you're recognizing when your cup is empty, you're letting people grow, not only in your employees and giving them their letting them to come into their own power and letting them grow, and how and it just, from what it sounds like, how you structure your business that way, when one wins, everybody wins, right? You're letting everybody grow individually, but you're the rocket fuel, you're the for these small businesses, right? Which is so cool. So I absolutely love that. And I'm so glad we are able to do this. I guess just the last question is just, is there anybody along your journey that you'd like to thank, that helped you get
God.
here?
I feel like I have to think. There's so many people. But like when it all comes back down, it's always this interesting hub. Like Good Life was a very pivotal community that I think really shifted so much in my
Mhm.
world in many ways, good, bad, like
Yeah.
positive, negative. Like it just broke my world open because I was in the hub of a community. Like
Yeah.
the Kelowna community went there. Like that
Yeah.
was how I started to learn the power of that. And it really like, and I even like, with my fitness stuff, like learned about Instagram. Like it really was that place. And I wasn't even meant to get the job. Like it was someone else that was trying to get a job for my boyfriend at the time. So it's just like, it's just
Yeah.
so strange. So everyone in that space, like I know so many, and they've all played a pivotal role in some way, shape, or form. And then of course, like my sister, who's also an entrepreneur and an amazing gift as well. She keeps pushing me forward every time I want to go back. So
That's awesome.
there's, yeah, there's so many other people, but like that, when I think about like this call and this chat and where it all stems back from, like that was definitely a very pivotal moment that was meant for me, but I didn't know that it was meant
Hmm.
for me until, it all happened and everything started linking back to it.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So I guess any closing words before we wrap this up?
No, other than social media is such an amazing tool for personal growth as well as for professional development and business growth, of course. And I feel anyone who has a hatred towards it, look at that and wonder why and try to flip it. We all know like everything has a negative to it, but is there an opportunity there for you? And what is it? And where can you use your gifts to step into that? So that's my thing. That's all
That's so
I
funny, because that was literally like, it sounded like I know we're talking, but it's almost like you're speaking my soul, because
can.
I had a big hiatus on social media for 5, 6 years, and it was just how it was making me feel. To be honest, I look back, it was how I was feeling about myself. But I do think there is some, truly, I do think, like anything, there can be some really negative sides to it.
Yeah.
You can fall down rabbit holes, you can get obsessed with certain things, and it can have this really ugly things, just like anything. It's just like medicine. You take too much medicine, it's bad.
Yeah.
You exercise too much, it's not a good thing. But there can be a beautiful side to it.
Yeah.
There can
It's
be a really
cool.
wonderful side, and I think you're nailing it so well. And it inspires me to keep doing the social media side, because that's the part that I struggle with. But it's because you're doing it out of a place of consciousness. You're doing it out of a place of your heart and your mind are connected, and you're doing it out of a place of trying to help people grow. Which I
Mm-hmm.
think, so when you have those intentions, that's the heart behind it, right? And then the science is just, the platform. So yeah,
Exactly.
what a beautiful thing. And I appreciate you saying that. So thank you again so much, Megan, for being on the show. I
Welcome.
appreciate you. And anybody who wants to reach out, you can reach out to her. Actually, yeah, sorry, what are your tags?
Yeah,
Because
you can find us over at BNL Social. That's the main tag. And then if you type in Megan Shallow, I'll probably come to the top and there's a photo of me with sunflowers in the background. So that's my personal one, which I have opened to the public. So
awesome. And yeah, you know what, if anybody out there that does need work with it, or work with the social media, that have been, on the fence, just need to grow, I would definitely encourage you to reach out, because I've been following them for a bit and they're doing some wonderful things. And to see, how you're doing it speaks volumes over what you're doing, in my opinion. So thank you again so much.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, Nathaniel.
Thanks. So thanks again for listening to this episode. I learned so much from this, not only from the social media side, which I tend to shy away from, even though I know it's necessary, but really just it was inspired on how she did things. And again, the alignment part and allowing people to grow and to utilize their gifts, that made an environment that helped everybody. So thanks again for listening. If you like these episodes, please like, share, subscribe, and follow along, as I want to continue doing more episodes like this. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.